Can you all hear me?
Yes, Bhante, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Judy. If you have your vaccination, you come here. Your library office is ready.
Yes, Bhante, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Where is the metta recital? Hello. Okay. Let us begin with the metta recital. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desire for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. With this metta thought, let us start our meditation. As she repeatedly mentioned, let us focus our mind on our breathing and notice the breath touching our nostrils, reaching our lungs and expanding lungs, and expanding our lower abdominal area. We do this without verbalizing or conceptualizing. Just pay very simple, undivided, mindful attention. As we breathe out, lower abdomen contracts, chest area contracts, breath leaves our nostrils, and we notice this also without verbalizing or conceptualizing, without thinking of the past, without thinking of the future. Just stay in the present moment as this expansion and contraction and touch of breath takes place. These are the things that happens in the present moment. As we relax and just pay attention, non-verbal attention, then the breath becomes calm, relaxed, and peaceful. And this is what the Buddha said, Passam Bhayam Kaya Sankaram. Relaxing the breath, body, we breathe in and out. Then the body, other physical body also relaxes. The mind relaxes. In this relaxed state of mind, greed will have no place. So if any greed craving arises, that is a bother to our mind. That is an impediment, hindrance. So we let it go. In fact, all we do is relaxing, then the greed fades away by itself. When the greed fades away, the breath, mind and body relaxes even further. When they relax, our resentment, anger will no longer be there, if there is any, because we feel the feeling of friendliness, loving friendliness. We feel that all of us, without any exception, are on the same theme, on the same page, breathing in and breathing out according to the themes and rhythm of the whole universe. Expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting. When all these are so calm, relaxed, peaceful, non-verbal, it is possible for the mind to become sluggish, sleepy, drowsy. At that time, we should not succumb to sleepiness, drowsiness. Rather, we must arouse our spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is called Dhamma Samvega. Dhamma Samvega means additional speed of our practice. When we arouse our spiritual urgency, we really begin to understand that our life is gradually fading, weakening, and leading towards the inevitable goal that is called aging and death. As the bodies are aging and death, we must make the best use of that body right now with mindfulness. Be quite aware of it, and lethargic, drowsy condition will not arouse our insight or wisdom. Rather, it blunts our wisdom. And therefore we urge ourselves to stay awake, alert and mindful. When we do this, the opposite of this happens. When sleepiness and drowsiness fade away, restlessness and worry can arise. Restlessness and worry regarding something that we have done in the past incorrectly or incompletely. So also something that we might be thinking of doing after our meditation, all this can arouse restlessness and worry. So we let go of that by again becoming very alert and mindful. Then we will see our sometimes doubt arise. We might think, can I become successful? Will all these things happen to me? Do they arise in me? Are these instructions given to somebody who have all these things, but I don't have them? Can I become successful? Is the Buddha correct in saying all these things? And so forth. Any kind of doubt we have in mind will fade away. As Dhamma becomes clearer and clearer, doubt will fade away. Only when Dhamma, through our practice, is not very clear to our mind, doubt can stay. And therefore, when we arouse our confidence, trust in the Buddha, Dhamma that he taught, and the Sangha that follows this Dhamma and attain freedom of suffering, then our confidence builds up. With this, letting go of our greed, resentment, sleepiness and drowsiness, restlessness and worry and doubt, the body and mind become even further relaxed, calm, peaceful, and insight begins to arise. Insight is into the reality of rising and falling. Friends, one has to be impartially watching one's own experiences to understand this reality of rising and falling, appearing and disappearing, and that gives us a deeper awareness, arousing our wisdom. Now let us stay with this little short instructions and continue our practice. All these instructions are we repeat every day because this is how we begin our practice. With this, I stop talking and let us spend the rest of the time meditating until I ring the bell. imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo tu yava nibbana pattiya dukkha pattaca nidukkha bhaya pattaca nibbaya soka pattaca nisoka hontu sabbe pipanino bhavaggupadaya avici hettato ettantere sattakayopapanna rupi arupi ca asanya sanyino dukkha pamunchantu pusantu nibbhutin. By means of this meritorious deed, may I never join with the foolish, may I join always with the wise until the time I attain Nibbana. May the suffering be free from suffering, may the fear-struck be free from fear, may the grieving be free from grief, so too may all beings be. From the highest realm of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. Excellent, excellent, excellent. With this, friends, we want to continue our Dhamma talk on Bojjhanga. Today I am going to talk on the last part of Bojjhanga, that is equanimity. Equanimity is to be cultivated. It doesn't come to us automatically, naturally. It is a very delicate way of cultivating equanimity. There are instructions given by the Buddha in discourses, some of which I like to bring out in this little short talk. When we remember, this is not easy practice, but one has to be very mindful, one must be alert and very insightful to cultivate this equanimity. When one, it is not difficult, it is not impossible, but rather difficult, and yet we can practice it. So Buddha gave, first I want to explain in using some similes that Buddha used. Suppose you see an object which may be pleasant, unpleasant or neutral. At that time you can bring your mind to the awareness of the present moment breathing and stay there cultivating equanimity, neither thinking of the pleasantness or unpleasantness of the object that you saw. Just stay equanimous. Pleasantness, unpleasantness are the two types of extreme feelings. In between is the neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. Now we can develop our mind to stay in that feeling. So too we have to learn to let go of the pleasant feeling at that time or unpleasant feeling at that time and bring mind to the present moment. The Buddha gave a very powerful simile. It is just like when you see an sightly object, object that you don't like, or object that you like, as soon as that vision, that object appears in front of you, in order to cultivate equanimity, it is just like closing your eyes and opening. Like closing an eyes and opening. That means that quickly you can let go of pleasantness, unpleasantness, and return to the equanimous feeling. It happens so quickly that it doesn't take very long time to bring it to your equanimous feeling. Because as we repeatedly mentioned, you have been practicing mindfulness. This entire factors of enlightenment, 7 factors, we began with mindfulness as the first factor. So mindfulness factor stays all along with other factors. So mindfulness gains more and more strength. It builds up momentum from one factor of enlightenment to the next, and to the next, and to the next, and so forth. You are in the present moment with more mindfulness, and now you want to cultivate equanimity. This is how you begin, with the sight. Similarly, when you hear a sound, it can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. You want to cultivate at that moment equanimity. At that time, you immediately bring your mind to the present moment, and you let go of the presentness or unpleasantness, but pleasantness or unpleasantness, but bring mind to the present, this very current moment. It is the Buddha said, just like you drop few drops of water onto a lotus leaf which is slightly slanted. It is not totally horizontal, not totally vertical, but in an angle, slow, it's a slant a little bit. When you drop few drops of water, those drops of water slowly roll down and fall onto the ground. Another drop of water roll and fall onto the ground. Similarly, when we hear a sound, this simile is very beautiful, referring to sound, because sound appears and slowly disappears. It has vibration. Even sound strike first our eardrums, and then slowly it fades away. As we keep paying attention to it, it slowly disappears. At that time, you experience equanimity. You do not want to dwell upon that sound. Let it go and return to the equanimous state. Similarly, when you when you hear a sound, the simile was the snapping of your finger, the snap of your finger. A snapping is a sound, and when it hits your eardrum, it appears and disappears, because snapping the finger doesn't last too long. It quickly disappears. Similarly, when you hear a sound, instead of going through the vibrations, you just notice the very first touch, called phassa, contact, very first contact, and let it go and stay in equanimous. The next one is, the simile I gave you earlier, is for the for the smell. When we smell something, if it is pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, don't go after pleasantness or unpleasantness. Just bring it to your present moment of equanimity. The simile is that putting few drops of water to the lotus leaf. And then the taste. When we taste something, it is pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Then, if we want to bring our equanimity or equanimous feeling and remain equanimous, then you immediately notice that pleasant or unpleasantness and let it go. When we have, of course, pleasantness, we have a underlying tendency of desire, greed. When we have unpleasant feeling, unpleasant taste, there is an underlying tendency of aversion. So, without going to any of these extremes, mind bringing back to the equanimous feeling, it is just like when you take little spittle, saliva to the tip of your tongue, and if you want to spit out, you just very quickly spit and it disappears. Similarly, all this unpleasant taste would be vanished if you bring your mind to the present moment and remain equanimous. Then bodily feelings can be pleasant, unpleasant or neutral. In order to bring the bodily feeling, also you have to bring your mind to the present moment, and the simile the Buddha has given is just like a strong person flexing his hand or bending it very quickly. He can do that. Similarly, when we have physical touch, if you want to cultivate equanimity, don't go after the pleasantness or unpleasantness, but bring mind to the equanimous feeling. Then the last is even more powerful. That is, as I mentioned, we have been cultivating the factors of enlightenment beginning from mindfulness. As I said, mindfulness never stops. It continues building up force, building up momentum. It keeps building and building and building. So when it comes to the mental state, Buddha gave a very beautiful simile. Just like you put a few drops of water into a frying pan which has been on fire for all day long. All day long the frying pan is on the stove. It is very, very hot. If you put few drops of water, these drops of water very quickly evaporate, disappear. Similarly, when the mind is full of mindfulness, any pleasantness, unpleasantness or neutral feeling that bothers you will immediately vanish and you remain equanimous. So this is how Buddha advised us to develop, cultivate equanimity from sight, sound, smell, taste and touch and thought. Bringing mind to the present. We always emphasize in our meditation instructions coming back to the present moment. This is a sort of a culmination of bringing the mindfulness with equanimity to the present moment. We will discuss this further in our, there may be more than one talk on equanimity. This is the first one, beginning of the story. Then there is another even more difficult and yet possible practice. That is when one sees or hears, smell, touches, thought, anything repulsive. When if the meditator wants to cultivate that person's mindfulness of repulsiveness, that person's perceive, this is very difficult thing, this is very highly developed state of mind, can do this. When repulsive state arises, repulsive sight, sound, smell and so forth arises, the person immediately turns to unrepulsiveness. Repulsive he sees as or perceives as unrepulsive. Or if he wants to cultivate from unrepulsive, he wants to, if he wishes to develop repulsiveness from unrepulsiveness, he can perceive unrepulsiveness as repulsive. Or if he wants to cultivate repulsiveness and unrepulsiveness, if he wants to cultivate in both repulsiveness, he can develop that state of mind. Or if we want to cultivate both repulsiveness and unrepulsiveness, he wants to cultivate equanimity in both repulsiveness and unrepulsiveness arise, but his mind is bent upon cultivating equanimity. So for in his mind, he might he want to avoid both repulsive, unrepulsive, and he abide in equanimity. So, and then he will be equanimous and mindful and fully aware. So he abides in equanimity towards that state. The state that he experiences repulsive or unrepulsive, but for in his mind he wants to cultivate equanimity. You remember some times ago when we were talking about 32 parts of the body, which is called repulsiveness of the body or unattractiveness of the body and so forth, I mentioned several times this body is not repulsive or unrepulsive. We have to look at the body exactly as it is. And this is where Buddha mentioned that. So the person who develops his mind can see the bodily parts. You know, people say they are ugly, dirty, unpleasant and repulsive and so forth. But for the developed mind is impartial mind, unbiased mind, the mind that is full of equanimity. Now this equanimity is not something indifference. Just indifference is in ordinary language is something negative. Equanimity is not something negative. Equanimity is the balanced state of mind, the state of developed mind. through the practice of mindfulness, concentration, insight, the person develops his mind, and that mind remains impartial. He can make in situation to give a justice. He can be real justice, not giving judgment. You see the difference between judgment and justice. So one who has developed the mind in that way can have impartial, unbiased, equanimous state to see, hear, smell, taste, touch and think the things impartially with equanimous state of mind. Equanimous state of mind is the state of mind that is the best to cultivate. In the equanimous state of mind there is mindfulness and there is balance and impartiality, and also it is a joy. Equanimity is not something negative. It is full of the state of mind, full of joy, full of happiness. We discuss all these things even further. So there are ways of developing equanimity in other ways, and that is supreme kind of equanimity. For instance, when one sees sees object that one likes, or thinks of object that one likes, something that person has experienced something in the past, and that was a very, very pleasant sight, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought of the past, or present sight, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought of the present moment, or sight, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought of the future. There can arise a very pleasant feeling, and that pleasant feeling it can be either with underlying tendency of greed, hatred or delusion, or without underlying tendency of greed, hatred and delusion. The feeling, the pleasant feeling with greed, hatred and delusion is called gehasita feeling, gehasita vedana. Gehasita means belonging to mundane, ordinary life. And the same objects developed mind, a person who has developed his mind sees, hears, smell, tastes, touches and thinks of the same object. That person will have a very pleasant experience. This pleasant experience is not with underlying tendency of greed, hatred and delusion. Therefore, that pleasant feeling is called nekkammasita feelings. Nekkammasita means, nekkam is letting go. No greed, no hatred, no delusion. So the same feeling, both persons sees, hears, smell, taste, touch and think of the same thing. But one person has greed, hatred and delusion in that person's experience. Other person sees, hears and smell and so forth, the same thing, But in that person's mind, there is no greed, hatred and delusion coming from the sound, smell, taste and so forth. And that is called nekkammasita feeling. Nekkammasita or happiness. Happiness of renunciation. Happiness of letting go. Then another person, there may be, we say A and B for our explanation. So A, again, seeing, hearing, smelling, touching and thinking of what is happening now, or seeing, hearing, smelling and so forth, that happened in the past, when he remembered that the person A has seen, heard and so forth in the past, and also will see, the person will think of the future. That person may be very, very unhappy, sad, disappointed, anger, resentment can arise in that person's mind, remembering certain incident of the past or experiencing some incident now, or thinking of some incidents in future, possible incidents in future. Very strong, unpleasant feeling can arise. That's called dukkha vedana. Dukkha vedana. Unpleasant or suffering can arise in his mind. And the person called number B, and it's a letter B, also experience unpleasant things in the present, past and future, but in that person's mind, anger or dukkha, suffering does not arise. But that person, not the kind of suffering that A has, but he also has a suffering. That is, he has been practicing meditation and he follows all the instructions and very regular, very consistent. For a long time he practices, and yet he has not attained the expected goal. Expected goal is liberating himself from suffering. He has heard many people attain liberation from suffering by following same instructions, but this person follows the same instruction and has not yet attained the liberation. And in that person there will be sadness, dukkha, suffering. That dukkha, that suffering, that sadness is due not to something mundane, but due to not attaining full liberation. That is called dukkha. And number A, or letter A, that person experience something now and remember something he experienced in the future, or he may experience he may be thinking of experiencing future. There can arise equanimous feeling, neutral feeling, neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. And that person gets very confused because he gets stuck, he does not know what to do, how to proceed with his practice. Number B, or letter B person, also experienced the same thing of the past, remembering the past, experiencing things now, possible experience in the future, will have equanimous feeling. That equanimous feeling does not have confusion as underlying tendency. Why? That person sees and will see everything without any exception is impermanent. When he sees everything is impermanent, in that person's mind arises joy. That is why Buddha says, yato yato sammasita khandana. When the person sees rising and falling of everything, there is no one bit of difference. Everything is the same. Then the person will have equanimous feeling with insight. Equanimous feeling with insight, not with confusion. Friends, as I said, I will continue these talks on my next week, but today my time is up. I plan to give several talks on this topic because it is a very important topic. And so remember this, and perhaps if I forget, you might remind me next time when I say when I start my talk on equanimity again. And remember, we are giving this series of talks on Mahasatipatthana Sutta, and we came to the last section called mindfulness of Dhamma. Mindfulness of Dhamma is divided into 5 categories. We discussed 3 of them. This is number 4, that is 7 factors of enlightenment. When these 7 factors finished, I will start the last of the 4 or last of the 5. And until then, that also long way to go. So for now, I should stop here, and thank you for your participation. Once again, I want to dedicate our merits to all those who have passed away. Yesterday, one of our very dear supporters' father passed away, and this is what we hear. Every day we hear somebody's death due to COVID-19 or some other sickness, every day. And after somebody passes away, their relatives, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, whoever is alive, grieve. They are unhappy, sorrow, lamentation arise in their mind. We want to wish them understand Dhamma and overcome this nature of life, and try to practice Dhamma more urgently, more diligently, and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. And also there are many people in hospitals taken care of by very compassionate doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs. We want to wish the patients to recover very quickly, and the nurses and doctors and hospital staffs to stay healthy, to continue their marvelous, wonderful, noble work for the benefit of others. And there are many people who are supporting financially and spiritually to console people. Let them continue their wonderful service for the benefit of all of them. And there are others who have been taking leadership in creating situations for people to practice, in giving encouraging them to get vaccination and so forth. May they continue their very insightful, wise decisions for the benefit of others. And overall, we want to wish all beings be well, happy, and peaceful, and finally attain liberation from samsara. Thank you for coming and participating in this Dhamma discussion.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Thank you,
Sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu,
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 sadhu.
sadhu,
Thank you,
sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu.
Sadhu,
Thank you.
sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante.
Saranai.